I'm 55 years old, and 30 years ago, I made a choice that felt smart at the time. I walked away from my dream to take the safe path, and that one decision has eaten me alive every single day since. My name is Jessica. I'm 55, and for the last 3 decades, I've been living a life that looks successful from the outside, but feels like a prison from the inside. And the worst part? I did this to myself. I had a chance to pursue what I really wanted, and I chose safety instead. And now I'm stuck watching other people live the life I was supposed to have. I need to tell you this story because I see it happening everywhere. I see people at crossroads choosing the safe path over the dream path, choosing security over passion, choosing what makes sense over what makes them come alive. And they think they're being smart, being mature, being responsible, but they're making the same mistake I made. And by the time they realize it, it'll be too late to go back. Let me take you back to where this all started. I was 25 years old. It was 1995. I'd just graduated from art school with a degree in photography. I was good at it, really good. My professors told me I had a unique eye, that my work stood out, that I could make it as a professional photographer if I was willing to work hard and take risks. I loved photography more than anything, loved capturing moments, loved playing with light and composition, loved telling stories through images. When I had a camera in my hands, I felt like myself in a way I never felt doing anything else. During my senior year, I built a portfolio, started submitting my work to galleries and magazines, and I got somewhere. Not huge success, but real progress. A small gallery in New York agreed to show my work. A local magazine hired me for a few assignments. Nothing that paid much, but it was a start. It was validation that I could actually do this. After graduation, I moved to New York, rented a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn with 2 roommates. The place was barely bigger than a closet, but I didn't care. I was in New York pursuing my dream. I was doing what I loved. I was poor and struggling, but I was happy. I spent my days taking photos, street photography mostly, people, architecture, moments that most people walked past without noticing. I'd spend hours wandering the city with my camera. Then I'd come home and develop the film in a shared darkroom, back when we still used film. At night, I worked as a waitress to pay rent. The money was terrible, but the schedule was flexible so I could photograph during the day. I was living on maybe $15,000 a year, eating ramen, wearing the same clothes constantly, living in a place that was falling apart. But I was doing what I loved. I was building something. The gallery show happened 6 months after I moved to New York. Small gallery in Soho, my photos hanging on white walls with little cards next to them with my name. Opening night, I stood there watching strangers look at my work. Some people walked past quickly, but some people stopped. Really looked, a few even asked about purchasing prints. I sold 3 photos that night, made about $600 after the gallery took their cut. That might not sound like much, but to me it was everything. It was proof. Proof that people valued my work, that I could actually make money doing this, that my dream might actually be possible. Over the next year, I kept building, got more magazine assignments, had my work featured in a group show at a bigger gallery. Started getting noticed in the local photography scene. I wasn't making much money, but I was making progress, slowly building a name for myself. Then I met David. He was a lawyer. Came into the restaurant, where I was waiting tables one night with some colleagues. He was well dressed, polite, left a good tip, started coming in regularly. We'd talk when things were slow. He'd ask about my photography, seemed genuinely interested. Eventually, he asked me out. I said yes. We started dating. David was everything I wasn't: stable, successful, secure. He worked at a big corporate law firm, made 6 figures, had a nice apartment in Manhattan, wore expensive suits, had his life together in all the ways I didn't. At first, I liked that about him. He represented a different world, a world of security and success and knowing where your next paycheck was coming from. It was appealing in a way, a break from the constant struggle of my life. We'd been dating for about 6 months when things started to shift. David started making comments about my lifestyle. Nothing mean, just observations. About how I was always stressed about money. How I was working so hard for so little return. How I was getting older and maybe it was time to think about building something more stable. He'd say things like, "Wouldn't it be nice to not worry about making rent? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to afford decent food and clothes? Wouldn't it be nice to have health insurance and savings and some security?" And honestly, part of me agreed. I was tired. Tired of being broke. Tired of the stress. Tired of eating ramen and living in a falling apart apartment. I was 26 years old and sometimes I felt like I was barely surviving. David suggested I could still do photography on the side, but maybe get a real job, something stable with benefits. He knew people. Could help me get interviews. I could be a staff photographer somewhere, or even do something adjacent to photography. Work at a gallery or a museum, something in the art world but with a real salary. I told him I wanted to make it as an artist. That was my dream. He said dreams were great, but you also had to be realistic. That most artists never make it, that the ones who do usually have family money to fall back on, that I was already struggling and it wasn't getting easier. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He genuinely thought he was helping, giving me perspective, protecting me from wasting years on something that might never work out, and I started to believe him. Started to think maybe I was being naive. Maybe I was clinging to a dream that wasn't realistic. Maybe it was time to grow up and be practical. My parents agreed with David when I talked to them about it. They'd never understood my choice to pursue photography. They wanted me to have stability, security. They'd been worried about me living in New York struggling to pay rent. They thought David was a good influence, that he could help me get on a more stable path. Even some of my friends from art school had already given up on their dreams, taken office jobs, moved back home, decided the struggle wasn't worth it. They'd tell me stories about how relieved they were to have regular paychecks and health insurance. How nice it was to not be constantly stressed about money. I started questioning myself, started wondering if I was being stubborn, if I was holding on to something I needed to let go of. If the smart thing was to accept reality and make a more practical choice. David proposed when I was 27. We'd been together for about a year and a half. He proposed in a nice restaurant, had the ring and everything. Said he loved me and wanted to build a life together. A real life. Not a struggling artist life, but a stable, secure, adult life. I said yes. Not because I was overwhelmingly in love, but because it felt like the right next step. Because everyone was telling me I was lucky to have found someone like him. Because I was tired of struggling and he was offering security. That's when he really started pushing me to give up photography as a career. We were getting married, planning a future together. He made good money, but I needed to contribute too. We couldn't build the life he envisioned if I was making $15,000 a year waiting tables and selling the occasional photo. He helped me get an interview at his firm for an administrative position, office work, answering phones, scheduling meetings, managing files. Nothing to do with photography or art, but it paid $45,000 a year with benefits, more than triple what I was making. I took the job, told myself it was temporary, just until we got settled, until I built up some savings, then I could go back to photography. This was just being practical, being mature. Making a responsible choice. We got married in 1997. I was 27 years old. We moved into a bigger apartment together. Started building a life that looked like what successful adults were supposed to have. Nice furniture, regular dinners out, vacations, savings account, the whole thing. I stopped taking photos, didn't have time anymore. The office job was 9 to 6 every day. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. Weekends were for errands and social obligations. I told myself I'd pick it back up eventually. When I had more time, when things settled down, but things never settled down. Life just kept moving forward. The office job became my job, not a temporary thing, but just what I did. After a year, they promoted me. More responsibility, more money. After another year, another promotion. I was good at office work. Organized, efficient, reliable. I climbed the ladder. By the time I was 30, I was making $70,000 a year managing a team of administrative staff. Good salary, good benefits, good career trajectory. But I'd stopped being a photographer, stopped even thinking of myself as an artist. That had become something I used to do, a phase, a dream I'd had before I grew up and got serious about life. David and I had our daughter Emma in 2000. I was 30. Took maternity leave, then went back to work. Now I really didn't have time for photography. Between the job and being a mother, there were no free hours, no mental space, no energy for anything except surviving each day. We bought a house in the suburbs in 2003, had our son Tyler in 2005. My career kept advancing. I became director of operations at the law firm. Was making over $100,000 a year by the time I was 35. David was making even more. We were firmly upper middle class, had everything we were supposed to want. Nice house, 2 cars, good schools for the kids. Retirement accounts, college funds, annual vacations. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but I was miserable, not dramatically. Not in a way anyone could see, just this constant low-level feeling of being in the wrong life, like I was playing a role instead of actually living. I'd see photos sometimes, in magazines or galleries or online, and I'd feel this ache, this longing for something I'd given up. I'd think about the gallery show I did in 1996, about walking around New York with my camera, about the feeling of creating something that mattered to me, but then I'd push those thoughts away, tell myself I'd made the right choice, that I had a good life, that I was being ungrateful for wanting more when I had so much. The years kept passing. Emma and Tyler grew up. My career continued advancing. David and I settled into a comfortable but disconnected marriage. We were partners running a household, not lovers sharing a life. But that seemed normal. That seemed like what happened to everyone after years of marriage and kids and careers. In 2015, when I was 45, something happened that cracked my carefully maintained denial. I was at a coffee shop and picked up a photography magazine. And there on page 47 was a feature about a photographer named Marcus Chen. Marcus had gone to my art school. Graduated the same year I did. We'd been friends. Used to talk about our dreams of making it as photographers. The magazine was profiling him because his work was being shown at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, one of the most prestigious venues in the world. I read the article and looked at his photos and felt like I was going to be sick. Because his work was good, really good, but it wasn't better than mine had been. We'd been at the same level when we graduated. He just kept going, kept pursuing it, kept working and struggling and building, while I'd given up. The article talked about his past, how he'd struggled for years, how he'd worked multiple jobs to support his photography, how there were times he almost quit, but he'd kept going, and now, 20 years later, he'd made it, was successful, was doing exactly what he'd dreamed of doing. That could have been me, should have been me. I'd had the same talent, the same start, the same opportunity, but I'd chosen safety, chosen security, chosen the path that made sense. And now Marcus was living my dream while I was stuck in an office job. I didn't care about managing schedules and budgets for lawyers. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the life I'd given up, about who I could have been if I'd just kept going, if I'd been willing to struggle longer, if I'd been brave enough to risk failure instead of playing it safe. I pulled out my old portfolio from a box in the basement, looked at photos I'd taken 20 years earlier. And they were good, really good. I'd forgotten how good. I'd convinced myself over the years that I probably wasn't that talented anyway, that it was just a young person's dream that wouldn't have worked out. But looking at those photos, I knew that wasn't true. I'd had something real, and I'd walked away from it. I cried that night, really cried for the first time in years, cried for the life I could have had, for the person I could have been. For the 20 years I'd wasted doing work that didn't matter to me. David found me in the basement looking at old photos and crying, asked what was wrong. I tried to explain, tried to tell him about the regret I was feeling, about the life I'd given up. He didn't get it, said I was being ridiculous, that I had a great life, that I was successful, that we had a beautiful home and healthy kids and financial security. What more did I want? And I couldn't explain it in a way he'd understand. Because from his perspective, I did have everything. Good job, good salary, good life. He couldn't understand what was missing because what was missing wasn't a thing. It was me, my authentic self, the person I was supposed to be. I'm 55 now. 10 years have passed since that night in the basement. I'm still working at the law firm, still making good money, still living in the suburbs. Emma is 25 now, Tyler is 20, both out of the house. David and I are still together but barely. We're strangers living in the same house. And I think about my choice every single day. Think about being 25 years old at that crossroads, having my dream right in front of me, and choosing to walk away from it because everyone told me to be practical. I gave up 30 years of doing what I loved for 30 years of security. And you know what? The security wasn't worth it. Nothing is worth living a life that doesn't feel like yours. I have money in the bank, have a retirement account, have a nice house, have everything society says I should want. And none of it matters because I'm not who I'm supposed to be. I see my old photos sometimes and I barely recognize the person who took them. She was brave, she was passionate, she was willing to struggle for something she believed in, and I killed her. Chose safety over her dreams, chose approval over authenticity, chose everyone else's idea of a good life over the life that would have actually made me happy. Marcus Chen is still working as a photographer, still creating, still living the dream we both had 30 years ago, and I'm stuck in an office counting down the years until retirement. People ask me sometimes if I have hobbies, if there's anything I'm passionate about, and I don't know how to answer. Because the thing I was passionate about, I gave up 3 decades ago, and I don't know how to get it back. Don't even know if I could. I'm not that person anymore. I tried picking up a camera again a few years ago, thought maybe I could rediscover it, but it felt dead. The spark was gone. The decades of not doing it had killed something in me that I can't resurrect. That's what choosing safety cost me. It cost me myself, cost me 30 years of living authentically, cost me the life I was supposed to have. And the worst part, I did it to myself. Nobody forced me, I made the choice. I listened to everyone telling me to be practical, and I gave up my dream. And now I have to live with that choice for whatever years I have left. I'm 55. If I'm lucky, maybe I have 25 or 30 years left, and I'm going to spend them living with this regret. Living with the knowledge that I had a chance and I didn't take it. That I could have been someone who mattered in the world I cared about, and instead I chose to be someone who doesn't. Here's what I need you to understand. When you're at that crossroads, when you're choosing between the dream and the safe path, everyone is going to tell you to choose safety. Everyone is going to tell you to be practical, to think about security, to not take unnecessary risks. And they're going to sound reasonable. They're going to sound like they're looking out for you, like they care about your well being, and maybe they do, but they're wrong, because safety isn't safe. Choosing the life everyone else thinks you should have instead of the life you actually want isn't protecting you. It's killing you, slowly, over years and decades, until you wake up at 55 and realize you've been dead inside for 30 years. I chose safety and it destroyed me, not all at once, not dramatically, but completely. It took the person I was supposed to be and erased her, left me with this hollow version living a life that looks good but feels empty. If I could go back and talk to my 25-year-old self, I'd tell her to ignore everyone. Ignore David, ignore my parents, ignore the voice in her head saying to be practical. I'd tell her to keep struggling, keep working, keep pursuing the dream even when it's hard, even when everyone says to give up, because the struggle would have been worth it, even if I'd failed, even if I'd never made it to MA like Marcus. At least I would have tried. At least I would have lived as myself instead of as someone else's idea of who I should be. But I can't go back. I can only go forward with this weight of regret. This knowledge that I had one life and I wasted it playing it safe. Don't make my mistake. Don't choose security over your soul. Don't give up your dream because everyone tells you it's not practical. Don't trade 30 years of your life for financial stability. Because I promise you, whatever security you gain won't be worth what you lose. You'll lose yourself. And you can't buy that back no matter how much money you save. I'm 55 and I chose safety over my dream. And the price I paid was everything that mattered. Subscribe if this made you reconsider what safe really means.